Okay, let me make an amendment on my Claypool trade takes from yesterday. I can change my mind, right? So right now, not the biggest fan of the trade. New information popped up on the feed after I released my initial reaction videos on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, and it came in the form of a tweet by Josina Anderson. She says, added background, from what I'm hearing and been hearing over the last week, the Steelers moved on from what they felt like was somewhat of a distraction behind the scenes. I'm told the Claypool move has been on the table for at least 2 weeks, per league source. I will say this in regards to my take yesterday, I did have a little loophole or an addendum when I questioned whether or not the Steelers viewed this move as addition by subtraction. Because on the surface level, how do you justify trading your wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, depending on the day, for a draft pick that won't be utilized until the 2023 season starts if you're still trying to win for the rest of the season and if you're still trying to help your rookie quarterback out the best that you can? Doesn't really make sense, right? But if this report by Josina is true, or at least there's some truth to it, and the Steelers didn't view Claypool in their long-term plans, he wasn't a fit culture-wise going forward, or maybe even a bit of a distraction behind the scenes, then I say do the trade. And I think it was a good move sooner rather than later, because this second round pick, I think, is great value to the Steelers. And ultimately, I think it was a fair trade for both sides. Both teams got what they wanted. The Bears, a proven weapon in Claypool and a weapon for Justin Fields, but also has some untapped potential. And then the Steelers, they presumably got a draft pick in the second round higher than where they initially drafted Claypool a few years ago. I just hope in Chicago's case, they're not hoping for a bona fide wide receiver 1 to be walking through those doors.
I'm not like the rest of the guys in the NFL.
Talk your talk, yeah.
I know I'm a top 5 receiver. I know I'm a top 3 receiver.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe Chicago's the team to unlock Claypool's potential. Wish him the best of luck. And another reason why this trade looks a little bit better the more removed I get from it, I did say yesterday I didn't think Claypool's trade value would drop that much in the offseason. And I still stand by that. I don't think he'd go for anything worse than a third-round pick. But as someone in the Twitch chat said yesterday, shout out to Rick on the Sticks, once you get to the offseason, though, teams may not be as eager to make trades. So I can understand why maybe they were willing to give up that second-round pick now as opposed to maybe the offseason where they would trade us that Ravens pick, which will probably be later in the second round, or maybe a third rounder, just because you're able to actually get Claypool in the system earlier. You got him for, these last 10 weeks of the season. You could see how the chemistry builds between him and Fields. And then you could start thinking about a long-term extension in the offseason or whatnot. And consider a team like the Bears, once the offseason hits and they're looking for a receiver, they may just start thinking about, hey, we can draft one instead of trading for a dude like Claypool and having to worry about giving him a contract extension and giving up draft compensation. They could just draft a dude, have him on a rookie contract, and presumably he should be talented being a first or second round pick. The difference, though, is you are getting a guy with proven productivity. Just because you draft a receiver in the first or second round doesn't mean it's going to work out. It always works out for the Steelers over these last 10 or 20 years, but not for every other team, and the Bears can attest to that. Kevin White. So with Claypool, you're still getting 6'4", 240, proven productivity, and most teams around the league are probably thinking with a dude like that, oh man, we could figure this out with him. He could hit that 1,000 receiving yard threshold. We can get him to be a top 10 receiver. So that's why I still think Claypool's value would have held up into the offseason. Maybe, though, I will admit this was probably his peak right now because teams are more willing to trade given that they're going to get the receiver on their team for the last 10 weeks of this season and also for 2023. But at the end of the day, if you combine Josina Anderson's report, if true, with the Steelers getting a high second round pick, it should be a top 10 pick in the second round. I think it's a good deal. If I had to give a grade to Omar Khan, I'm going to say A. Although I still don't really like how Claypool's missing from Pickett's wide receiver arsenal. And now we're going to have to rely on Boykin, Gunnar Olszewski, or Steven Sims. Or maybe it just means Freiermuth and Pickens get featured more in the offense and they get a lot more targets. Either way, it will be interesting to see how it plays out with this offense. But there is another little silver lining in this trade. My friends, the TikTok era is officially over in Pittsburgh. Thank God. Actually, never mind. I just remembered. We still got Marcus Allen. Now on to the other trade the Steelers made yesterday, William Jackson III, and it looks like an even better trade after the fact. And when I recorded yesterday, his contract situation was still up in the air. How much were the Steelers going to have to pay? How was it going to be divvied up? But it looks like the Steelers are only on the books for $2.77 million for the rest of the year. And then they'll have a $12.5 million option for 2023. That's what his cap hit would be. And if the Steelers pick that up, he'd have a roster bonus. I'm assuming they're not going to do that. It's going to be either some type of restructure or they're just going to release him. So it's extremely low risk, high reward. The compensation for this trade was just some late round draft pick swaps. Who gives a shit about that? You got a guy who's a first round talent, a guy that the Steelers initially wanted, and he fits a position of need. Familiar with the AFC North and wanted to be here? I know he hasn't been playing particularly well as of late and has dealt with some injuries, but you had Washington's coach Ron Rivera say yesterday in an interview that the fit was never really right with the team and Jackson from the start.
The biggest thing is, more so than anything else, is that we looked at what we tried to do with William and it didn't work. I mean, quite honestly, we didn't find the fit that we were hoping to find. We were looking for a guy that had a specific skill set that could understand the match coverages and play the match coverages the way we do with everybody else. And he struggled with it because he really is a man coverage type guy.
I really only view this as a positive because you add a guy who's been a cornerback one throughout his whole career and knows what it takes to be one to a Steelers secondary that has struggled at moments throughout this season and has dealt with injuries. On the flip side, if it doesn't work out, what are you losing? Nothing. But if it does, again, you can have a William Jackson provide a spark to this defense for this season. And maybe he does find that niche. Maybe he does find that role in Pittsburgh. And in the offseason, I know there's that $12.5 million cap hit if we keep his contract. But I don't think the Steelers organization works like that. They'll figure out some type of restructuring and keep Jackson around for the next year or two. Overall, I really like what the Steelers did yesterday. With this Jackson trade, it's only upside, only house money. The Claypool one is met with a little bit more uncertainty and risk. But man, final grade, A+. But that's it for this edition of Big Deke News. Let me know what you guys think of the Steelers' moves at the trade deadline. What grade would you give Omar Khan in the organization? But yeah, again, hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling. Peace.